Hello, world. I'm Jack, and welcome to English Speaking Studio.
I'm Lucy. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in and make learning English an unforgettable journey.
Hey everyone. Ready for a deep dive into something I think a lot of us can relate to?
Oh, yeah.
Social burnout.
Interesting.
Using some research and articles
Okay.
that you sent over.
Yeah.
You know that feeling of just being totally wiped by like social interaction?
Yeah.
I feel like I've been there for sure.
Right.
Just last month, I accidentally
Yeah.
double booked myself for a friend's art show opening
Oh, wow.
and a family dinner on the same night.
Yikes.
And I swear,
Yeah.
by the end of the night,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm ready to just be a hermit now.
Oh, I can imagine. That's so relatable.
Yeah.
And, it highlights something really important.
Yeah.
Social burnout isn't just about being introverted or extroverted.
Right.
Like, even the most outgoing people can hit a wall,
For sure. Totally.
It's more about that feeling of, depression.
Yeah.
Like, your social battery is just totally fried.
100%. And our sources point to some really specific signs that you might be experiencing this.
Yeah.
Feeling exhausted after you've been around people, even if you're having fun,
Right.
or maybe dodging phone calls
Yeah.
and texts, or having trouble focusing when you're having conversations.
Right.
Does any of that resonate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember
Yeah.
this isn't about disliking people.
Right.
Right. It's more about recognizing your limits.
Yeah.
And speaking of limits,
Okay.
one of the biggest culprits behind social burnout, according to our sources, is overcommitting.
Ah, okay.
Saying yes to every invitation,
Yeah.
every request,
Totally.
every notification.
Oh my God.
It's just a recipe for disaster.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm so guilty of that.
Right.
It's there's this pressure to be on all the time, both in person and online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that constant digital connection
Oh, yeah,
plays a role in this?
absolutely. One of the studies that we're looking at found a direct correlation
Interesting.
between time spent on social media
Okay.
and feelings of social exhaustion.
Wow.
And it's we're always performing,
Yeah. Yeah.
always comparing ourselves to others,
Totally.
and that takes a real toll.
It's interesting that you say performing.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it that way before.
Yeah.
But so much of what we see on social media is a crafted, perfect image,
Totally.
which probably adds to that pressure.
Absolutely. And it distracts us from the fact that,
Totally.
those genuine connections, those face-to-face interactions
Yeah,
where you can truly be yourself,
for sure.
those are what really matter.
Totally.
It's about quality over quantity,
Yeah.
not the number of likes on your latest post.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right.
It's we're sacrificing those
Yeah.
real meaningful moments
Mhm.
for the sake of
Yeah.
maintaining this
Right.
online persona.
Totally.
And on that note,
Yeah.
another thing that jumped out at me from our sources is the importance of alone time.
This is huge GE,
Yeah.
especially for introverts. But even extroverts need time to recharge
Yeah.
and process their experiences.
Totally.
And one expert actually compared it to
Okay.
physical exercise.
Okay.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
hit the gym every single day without rest.
Right.
Right.
Of course not.
Your muscles need time to recover.
Yeah, for sure.
Same with our
Yeah.
social energy.
That's such a good analogy.
Yeah.
And our source gives a perfect example.
Okay.
Imagine having to attend
Mm-hmm.
back-to-back
Yeah.
work events,
Mm-hmm.
then a family gathering,
Right.
and then catch up with friends,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
all in 1 week.
Exhausting.
It's no wonder people
Yeah.
feel burnt out.
It's we've forgotten the value of simply being
Yeah.
without that pressure
Yeah,
to interact or entertain.
totally.
And there's another layer to this,
Okay.
which is this pressure to people pleaser.
Oh, I know that one
Right.
all too well.
That fear of saying no because
Yeah.
you don't want to disappoint anyone.
Yeah,
And this often stems from
Yeah.
wanting to be liked and accepted,
of course.
which is totally natural.
Yeah,
But when it comes at the expense of our own well-being,
right.
that's when it becomes problematic.
For sure. And our source mentions how social anxiety
Oh, yeah.
can amplify this whole thing.
Here.
Imagine
Mm-hmm.
already feeling anxious
Yeah.
in social situations.
Right.
And then forcing yourself to interact
Oh, man.
because you feel obligated.
It's rough.
It's just a recipe for exhaustion.
It creates this vicious cycle where, yeah.
The more drained you feel,
Right.
the harder it becomes to engage socially.
Exactly.
And the more pressure you put on yourself to perform.
Totally.
It's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Okay, so we've talked about, like,
Yeah.
the signs of burnout and some of the reasons behind it.
Right.
But, like, what can we actually do about it?
That's the big question.
Our sources have some strategies, right?
They do.
Okay, good.
And one of the most important ones
Okay.
is learning to set boundaries.
Okay.
It's about recognizing your own limits.
Yeah.
And having the courage to say no when you need to.
Easier said than done.
Right. Oh, I hear you.
Especially for people pleasers like myself.
But the sources emphasize that setting boundaries
Yeah.
isn't selfish.
Okay.
It's actually a form of self-respect.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to set those boundaries?
Well, first we have to acknowledge that our needs are valid.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
we need to communicate those needs
Right.
to the people in our lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be confrontational,
Okay.
you know?
So instead of just saying yes out of habit,
Right.
maybe saying something like,
I'd love to, but I need some time to recharge.
Exactly.
okay.
And the more we practice setting those boundaries, the
Yeah.
easier it becomes.
I love that. It's like building a muscle.
Right.
Yeah.
The more we exercise it,
Yeah.
the stronger it gets.
Totally.
And the stronger our boundary setting muscle becomes, the better equipped we are
Yeah.
to handle those social demands
Yeah.
without completely burning out.
This has already given me so much to think about.
I know, right? It's fascinating stuff.
So what other strategies do our sources suggest
Okay.
for managing social burnout?
Well, you know, it's fascinating
I mean,
how our sources emphasize that managing social burnout isn't just about saying no
Yeah.
or hiding away from the world.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not about becoming a hermit.
Right.
It's about finding like a sustainable
Yeah.
way to engage socially
Totally.
without like
Right.
depleting yourself
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
with choosing quality interactions
Yes.
over just trying to be
Right.
everywhere at once.
Exactly. And that ties into another key strategy highlighted in our sources,
Okay.
which is prioritizing meaningful interactions.
Mhm.
It's about being intentional
Okay.
with our social energy
Yeah.
and spending time with people who genuinely energize us.
So instead of spreading ourselves thin,
Right.
trying
Yeah.
to please everyone,
Yeah.
we can focus on
Mhm.
nurturing those relationships
Yeah.
that actually feed our souls.
Precisely. And it might mean letting go of some relationships
Okay.
that are no longer serving us.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right.
But I can see how it would be necessary. If a friendship consistently leaves you feeling drained or negative,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to like reevaluate
Exactly.
its place in your life.
And our sources suggest approaching this
Okay.
with compassion,
Yeah.
both for yourself and the other person.
Right.
It's not about placing blame.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that our needs and priorities evolve over time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of prioritizing meaningful connection brings me back to something we touched on earlier.
Good.
The impact of social media.
Yes. The double-edged sword
Yeah.
of our modern age.
Totally.
And the sources dive deep into how this constant digital connection, while offering some benefits,
Yeah.
can also be a major contributor
Right.
to social burnout.
It's like we're always constantly comparing ourselves to others,
Yeah,
feeling pressure to present this perfect image.
absolutely.
It's exhausting.
And one of our sources,
Mm.
a psychologist specializing in burnout,
Okay.
uses this great metaphor.
Okay.
She compares it to having a second job,
Oh, wow.
but one where you're never off the clock.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So how do we like break free from this cycle of
Yeah.
like performative socializing
Yeah.
and reclaim our energy?
Well, one of the most effective strategies,
Okay.
according to our sources, is simply taking breaks from social media.
You mean like a digital detox?
Exactly.
Oh.
And it doesn't have to be forever.
Right.
Even just a few hours or a day can make a world of difference.
Wow.
Putting down our phones,
Yeah.
stepping away from the screens,
Yeah.
and reconnecting with the real world.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's about reclaiming our attention
exactly.
and choosing how we want to spend our time and energy.
And it's about remembering that our worth isn't tied to the number of likes or followers we have.
So important.
Right.
And it reminds me of something else
Okay.
that came up in our sources. The importance of scheduling
Yes.
alone time.
This is crucial.
Okay.
It's about intentionally carving out time in our schedules for activities that help us recharge and reconnect with ourselves.
So not just
Yeah.
passively scrolling through social media
Right.
or watching TV, but actively engaging in activities that bring us joy and peace.
Whether it's reading, taking a bath, going for a walk in nature,
Right.
or simply sitting in silence with a cup of tea.
Totally.
You know?
Whatever helps you feel
Right.
grounded and refreshed.
Yeah.
I love how our sources frame it as like a necessity,
Yes.
not a luxury.
Exactly. It's not selfish to prioritize our well-being.
Totally.
It's essential. And speaking of essentials,
Okay.
there's another aspect of managing social burnout that I think is incredibly important. Communication.
You mean like being open with our loved ones about how we're feeling?
Exactly. Our sources emphasize the importance of expressing our needs and boundaries to our friends and family, letting them know that we might need some space or that we're feeling overwhelmed.
I think a lot of people hesitate to do that for fear of like hurting others' feelings or being judged.
I understand that fear.
Yeah.
But the sources suggest that true friends and loved ones will be understanding and supportive.
It's about having those open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
Even if they're uncomfortable at first.
And it's about remembering that we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Social burnout is incredibly common.
Right.
Especially in today's world.
So instead of suffering in silence,
Right.
we can reach out and connect with others who might be going through the same thing.
Exactly. And that connection, that shared understanding can be incredibly healing.
And it reinforces the fact that it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
We're all human. We all have limits.
Totally.
And it's okay to ask for support
Yeah.
when we need it.
Absolutely. And speaking of support, our sources also touch on the importance of professional help.
Yeah.
If we're struggling with social burnout, sometimes it's more than just needing a break or setting boundaries. It could be connected to deeper issues like anxiety, depression, or even past trauma.
So it's important to recognize when self-care strategies aren't enough.
Right.
And to seek professional guidance.
When needed. And there's no shame in doing so.
Totally.
It's a sign of strength and self-awareness to acknowledge when we need help.
I love that reframing.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness.
Right.
It's actually a sign of strength to take care of our mental health. And on that note, I think it's important to acknowledge that managing social burnout is an ongoing process.
Absolutely. It's not a one-time fix.
Totally.
It's about developing sustainable habits and practices that support our well-being.
It's about finding what works for you and making adjustments.
Exactly.
Another way.
And it's about being kind to ourselves throughout the process.
Totally.
It's okay to have setbacks. It's okay to stumble.
For sure.
And it's okay to ask for help when we need it.
So as we move into like the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious to explore what our sources have to say about the bigger picture of social burnout. What are the societal implications of all this? It's interesting, right? As we've been exploring these different strategies for managing social burnout, it's striking how much of it comes back to like a shift in mindset.
It's almost like we need to redefine what it means to be well-connected in today's world.
Because our sources point out that this constant pressure to be on, to be available like 24/7 is actually counterproductive.
Totally.
It's leading to more burnout, not more connection.
One of the articles that you shared actually calls it the myth of endless social energy.
Wow.
This idea that we should always be up for anything, always ready to engage, is simply unrealistic.
It's like we're trying to run our social lives like a marathon, but with no rest stops
Exactly.
along the way.
And that's where the importance of boundaries comes in.
Yeah.
Our sources suggest that setting those boundaries, both in our personal and professional lives, is key to creating a more sustainable social ecosystem.
It's about recognizing that it's okay to say no, to prioritize our own well-being.
Yes.
And to create space for the things that truly matter.
And it's about shifting our focus from quantity to quality. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, we can focus on nurturing those relationships that truly bring us joy and fulfillment.
That reminds me of something we talked about earlier, the difference between like authentic connection and performative socializing.
Right.
Our sources suggest that a lot of social burnout stems from this pressure to perform, to present a certain image, rather than just being ourselves.
It's like we're constantly on stage curating our lives for an invisible audience.
Totally.
And that can be incredibly exhausting.
One of the studies we were looking at actually found that people who reported higher levels of authenticity in their relationships also reported lower levels of social burnout.
That makes sense. When we feel like we can be ourselves without judgment or pretense.
For sure.
Those interactions become much more energizing.
It's like taking off a heavy mask.
Yeah.
And finally being able to breathe freely.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of self-awareness.
Okay.
Our sources emphasize that the first step to managing social burnout is recognizing your own needs and limits.
What drains your energy?
Right.
What brings you joy? Who are the people that you feel most comfortable being yourself around?
Those are such valuable questions to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And once you have a better understanding of your own social landscape, you can start making choices that align with your well-being.
It's about creating a social life that feels nourishing and supportive.
Exactly.
Rather than like depleting and overwhelming.
And it's about remembering that it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
There will be times when you feel more socially energized
Yeah.
and times when you need to pull back.
Totally.
The key is to listen to your own inner compass.
Yeah.
And to honor your own needs.
And to be kind to yourself along the way.
Yes, it's okay to stumble. It's okay to make mistakes. And it's okay to ask for help when you need it.
Beautifully said.
Oh, thank you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into social burnout, I hope you're leaving with a sense of like hope and empowerment.
It's not about becoming a recluse.
Right.
It's about creating a more balanced and fulfilling way to engage with the world.
It's about setting healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Prioritizing authentic connection. And remembering that your well-being matters.
Absolutely.
And it's about recognizing that you have the power to create a social life that truly reflects who you are and what you need.
Totally.
So if you're feeling that familiar tug of like social exhaustion, remember that you're not alone.
You got this.
And more importantly, remember that you have the power to make a change.
You do.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this was fun.
On this deep dive. And until next time.
Yeah.
Take care.